I myself grew up with the games.
My wife, she was a big fan of the game. She played a lot.
Well, I still remember when the first game came out. Me and my friends were playing it all the time back in Norway. I was really blown away by not just the gameplay, but the storytelling in it, and of course the character of Lara Croft.
When you think of female-led games, Lara Croft is probably the first name that comes to everybody's mind.
She's hot and she's cool.
She's just a kick-ass girl that raids the tomb.
As a young girl, I hadn't seen a girl being the lead character in a video game, and that really drew me to it.
I've been playing video games since I can remember. Video games were always a part of my life. I had the amazing opportunity of writing a book called 20 Years of Tomb Raider. I never felt a sense of being able to relate to one of the characters until my dad brought home this game.
This was the first time that we got to play as this badass woman.
She was extremely fierce and determined and capable and a big adventurer.
It wasn't just the fact that it was a female character, but because it was this amazing, beautiful 3D world that felt so atmospheric and everything just worked together.
The original Tomb Raiders were groundbreaking in terms of graphics. You know, the environment and her character model, the animation walk cycles.
It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen at the time, this worldwide phenomenon.
You like that?
I do. I'll take two.
The original Tomb Raider came out in 1996, and the crew at Core Design had some fairly popular games under their belt, but were really looking to take it to the next level. There was a young designer named Toby Gard, and he had this idea for this very open-feeling game that focused on adventure and traversal and these mythical artifacts. There was a push towards using a female character, which was a risk at the time, but they decided to go for it. The original Lara Croft, the way that Toby Gard created her was to be very athletic, and you can see this in her design.
She was really strong and a role model, but then at the same time, her character model was created by mostly male developers and was marketed heavy on the sex appeal to a mostly male audience.
Don't you think you've seen enough?
She was considered this sort of virtual vixen, and that was very evident in the marketing. She has been on the face of so many different products. She's been in watches. She had her own clothing line. She's had her own cell phone covers, action figures, t-shirt lines, boxers, socks. Basically anything that you can think of, Lara has been on. And for fans, it's almost like a real-world treasure hunt.
Hello, Sprout. It'll be obvious to you by now that there was more to my life than just boardrooms and business deals.
The original Tomb Raider was this beautiful space, and there was just this really compelling thread of a narrative throughout the entire thing.
It was thrilling because it was one of the first opportunities that you had in a game for sort of non-linear exploration.
One of the things that I think everybody remembers is just the moment where this T-Rex comes out of nowhere.
I will never forget crowded around at night with the lights out and having that Tyrannosaurus Rex just pop out at you. That T-Rex moment is just, to me, the most iconic.
Tomb Raider 2 is actually my personal favorite of the classics. My favorite level in that is she explored this ship that had sunk to the bottom of the ocean, flipped upside down, and it was cool, terrifying. The sharks, the barracudas in this dark, dark ocean. In Tomb Raider 3, this was actually the first game that they allowed you to choose which order you played the adventures in.
Just the colorful nature of all her globe-trotting just always captured me.
Lara had to infiltrate Area 51, and it was a really unique scenario and level. It was a way of really blending the more traditional tomb spaces with something slightly more urban. Tomb Raider 4, you get to play as young Lara. The game took place in Egypt, and at the end, the tomb collapses on top of her, and it is left unknown. Fans did not know if she was dead or alive, and it was terrifying for a lot of fans at that time. They were very nervous that this was actually the end of Tomb Raider, but obviously it wasn't. In Tomb Raider Chronicles, and they had to get really creative because they had closed off that narrative thread. They actually decided to have it open with her memorial, so people who are a large part of her life start telling stories from her past that fans never had a chance to see. Angel of Darkness came out in 2003. The graphic upgrade was just incredible, and Lara looked more lifelike than ever before.
I used to be made up of 500 polygons, but now I'm 5,000. What do you think of my new look?
After the Angel of Darkness, the decision was made by Eidos to give the franchise to another company, which is Crystal Dynamics. It was a huge, terrifying responsibility to take such an beloved franchise and to put your own mark on it. They wanted to make it something that felt very unique to the studio. I think that the fluidity in combat in Tomb Raider Legend is one of the very big things that the studio really put their mark on. The origins of the 2013 reboot actually started before Underworld, which was the last game that was released before the reboot came out. The team already after releasing Legend was very proud of Legend, but there was already a feeling that the franchise needed to evolve. We started on this concept of really breaking down the franchise to its core and how can we reimagine this. And it was a very hard balance to make sure that they were keeping the heart of what makes the franchise and the character great, but reimagining it in a way that felt very relevant to a modern audience.
They absolutely killed it in the reboots. I think that they have tapped into the new gamer culture.
Survival became the way that they could really make Lara relatable.
I am incredibly impressed by the reboot's graphics. The acting involved with it are mind-blowing. If you look at the old low polygon environments of the old Tomb Raider, like I know that blew my mind back then, but now they have dynamic weather. That's so exciting to see a character evolve all the way through the history of gaming. It's incredible to experience a whole new Lara Croft. I remember gearing up in Tomb Raider, the pickaxe and the bow. It's a stark departure from guns.
It was another very terrifying decision to make to not give her dual pistols, because it was considered such an iconic part of her character. We were setting out to show Lara's origin. We didn't want her to start where fans expected her to finish. We wanted them to go on that journey with her and grow with her. And through that lens of survival, we needed multifaceted tools and weapons. What would be the most practical thing to have on a deserted island? It would be something like a tool, like a climbing axe or a bow that could be used for hunting food or for defending yourself. These were the tools that really became the heart of combat within the reboot franchise.
These new weapons have become just as iconic to her as the pistols.
When it came to the reboot, we really wanted to find a way to make sure that we grounded Lara physically in the real world.
They did so much to make her proportions human, but she's sexy in a way that she gets to own, and I really love that.
This Tomb Raider film was something that, as a studio, we were excited about because it was going to be bringing to life our version of Lara, this Lara that the team worked so hard on to realize.
I'm thrilled that they are using that universe for the movie.
It was amazing seeing the first images of Alicia and seeing the trailer. How much respect and how many homages to the 2013 game were in there. It felt like the creative team behind the movie really got our vision. Lara's going nowhere. She's still as successful today as she was 20 years ago, and that is such an incredible feat.
Having Lara Croft as this prominent, iconic lead female character, I mean, we would not have so many of the female-led games now if it weren't for her.
If the last 20 years have proven anything, it's that Lara Croft cannot be stopped, and her future is looking as bright as ever.
Lara Croft is definitely here to stay.
Bye for now.